The abomination that causes desolation was fulfilled in the first century by the Antichrist in this temple. Right here in Matthew chapter 24, verse 15 and 16, Jesus cites Daniel concerning the abomination that causes desolation, and he said that it would take place in the holy place. And in verse 16, Jesus mentions that this would serve as a sign for the Christians, that when they seen this committed in the holy place, they knew that it was about time for them to flee from Judea to the mountains, because desolation on Jerusalem would soon come by the hand of the Romans. Now, before the Christians fled from Judea to the mountains, this man right here, Ananias ben Ananias, who was the high priest, was murdered by the religious zealot faction in AD 66 in the holy place. Now, this is what Josephus had to say concerning that event, who, by the way, was a first century Jewish historian, and he's a primary source. But that which is still more terrible, there was no regard paid to the sanctuary, and was polluted every day with murderers and profanations, or abominations, of all sorts. The priests were slain in the performance of their sacred duties, and the holy places were defiled with blood. Now, it was at this point that the abomination of desolation was committed in the holy place, and the Christians, seeing that as a sign to flee from the city. And Eusebius, an ancient church historian, actually records this event. He says, but the people of the church in Jerusalem had been commanded by revelation, vouchsafed to approved men there before the war, to leave the city and to dwell in a certain town, Perea, called Pella. After the religious zealots had murdered the high priest and thousands of Jews in the holy place, they ended up installing a new high priest by lots, who, by the way, wasn't from the tribe of Levi, and happened to be Phineas, this guy right here, ben Samuel. Now, here's the first century account concerning that event. But the zealots cast lot for the high priesthood as they did in old time, and made Phinehas, son of Samuel of the village of Aphathia, a man not only unworthy of the high priesthood, but also altogether ignorant of what the high priesthood meant. Now, here's where it gets really fascinating, because it had all taken place in AD 66, immediately after the Roman armies, who were the Gentiles, had besieged Jerusalem and fought against Jerusalem for 42 months. That lands us in AD 70, when the temple was destroyed and Jerusalem was utterly desolated. And according to Revelation chapter 11, it had taken place for 42 months. Even when you go to Daniel chapter 12, which is the exact passage that Jesus is alluding to in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 and 16, you see that once the abomination of desolation is set up, how many days are there? 1,290 days, and it says 1,335 days. When you calculate that, that is 42 months. So once that was committed in AD 66 with the religious zealots, there was exactly 42 months left until, which was the last days of Jerusalem, until her utter fall in AD 70 at the destruction of the temple. So when we're asking the question, who is the Antichrist, or who is the lawless one? Well, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the lawless man, or the Antichrist, would take his seat in the temple of God, which was our Herodian temple that was destroyed in AD 70, and he takes his seat, which was Moses' seat, according to Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 and following. And so what we see in AD 66, with the killing of the high priest, and the killing of the murdering of thousands of Jews in the holy place, and the casting of lots to then inaugurate Phineas ben Samuel as the new high priest, he was the lawless one, and he was the Antichrist that took his seat in the temple of God to usurp authority in Moses' seat, which was unlawful for him, and he committed a myriad of profanations in the temple. God bless, in Jesus' name.